Welcome to week 2 of Management 520 Online. I look forward this week to talking with you and understanding more about your leadership strengths. Week 1, as you know, we invested time in understanding the concepts of emotional intelligence and then having you complete the brief emotional intelligence inventory that was in the Emotional Intelligence 2.0 book. I would like you to note that there are 2 survey administrations for the Emotional Intelligence 2.0 assessment. And I'd like to encourage you to make a note to yourself that 90 days after our class ends, so roughly about the end of May, I'd like to encourage you to take that second assessment of the Emotional Intelligence Inventory just to check your progress and see how you may have changed as a result of implementing your development plan based on the ideas, the information, and the practices that you identify as part of our course this term. So this week, what I want to do is cover 3 things in this video with you, and we're going to switch our emphasis and now focus on leadership strengths. So the first thing I'd like to go over is the Leadership Strengths Inventory, VIA, Values and Actions, Signature Strength Inventory. And under on Blackboard Quick Links, you'll see a tab that says Leadership Strengths Questionnaires. And the University of Pennsylvania is the link that's shown there. And what you'll find is a series of inventories that are available for you to take. All of these resources are free to you. And I'd like to encourage you to explore this website because there are many valuable, not only tools, but actually resources that can give you examples of how leaders demonstrate the strengths, as well as ideas to help you continue to expand your strengths. The reason in week 2 we're focusing on strengths is that far too often in organizations and in leadership roles, we focus on weaknesses. We focus on areas to grow, and the research will show that focusing on our weaknesses usually disempowers us. It makes us feel less confident, and we feel most who we are, and we feel the most impact when we're working within our areas of strength. So the Values and Action Inventory you're going to take this week is quite a bit longer than the Emotional Intelligence Inventory you took last week. The inventory has 240 questions, so that'll be one cue to you that you're taking the right inventory, the Values and Action Inventory. 240 questions that assesses 24 different strengths. These are global strengths for all individuals across leadership and individual contributor roles. And what I'd like you to do is to take the inventory and then, just as you did last week, to save the inventory as a PDF file, and then you'll be submitting that as part of the required assignments for week 2. So what I'd like you to do is to complete the inventory and then look at the videos that I've posted. I have 2 by Marcus Buckingham and 1 by Peter Seligman, who is one of the key leaders in Martin Seligman, who's one of the key leaders and researchers in looking at strengths and the importance of using strengths at work, at home, and in our volunteer roles in order to optimize our performance and the impact that we make on others. So one thing I'd like you to consider is when you look at your top 5 signature strengths, reflect on examples of how those strengths may show up in your work environment, in the situations you find yourself in, whether you're interacting in day-to-day activities at home, in your community. And let me give you an example of this. One of my top signature strengths is creativity and ingenuity. And what I've known as I look back on my own career development and my growth as an individual, in each context I've been in, I've felt most energized and most engaged when I've been allowed to be creative in the work that I'm doing and how I'm approaching the process. And this has covered the breadth of when I was in graduate school completing my PhD and the creative work I did in understanding my research topic, which was on leadership and social support. It also then translated to my development and my work as a consultant and the work that I did with various clients to come up with new approaches and practices and processes to make leadership impact, team effectiveness, more well-rounded, and to go beyond the current protocols that already existed. I also do, as an avocation, I enjoy making jewelry, and I find that my creativity also demonstrates itself there, as you might imagine, in the work that I do in designing different types of jewelry, earrings, necklaces, etc. My children, I work in their classroom, and I find as I work with teachers and volunteer in their school district, I find new ways to help them be more effective, help the students, help to guide them in their growth. So I find that my creativity and ingenuity, which is one of my top VIA signature strengths, really does cut across the different leadership contexts that I'm in, as well as the different development that I've had over the last 30 years since I've completed my PhD. So this is something I'd like you to reflect on. And as you think about your Week 10 Leadership Development Plan, to look at optimizing and developing your signature strengths, those top 5, even farther. I don't want you to focus on the lower 15 to 24 in the ranking that you'll get of your VIA strengths. I'd like you to focus on the top 5 and identify 1 or 2 that you really would like to invest more time in developing and growing through your development plan as you think about different approaches to apply one of your top 5 VIA strengths in new ways, in different situations, and by maybe interacting with people and sharing your strengths and offering the best of who you are as an individual in order to optimize your impact as a leader. So that brings me to one subtopic I want to discuss, and that is leadership is independent of your job. It's independent of your job title or the position that you hold. And I think far too often we confuse the job of a leader, aka having a manager title, with the leadership that each of us bring. The leadership in the situations we bring in our interactions with people in our community and the volunteer work that we do, the leadership that we bring as individual contributors in the projects that we work on, in our paid for work roles, and then the leadership we bring at home. And what we do is we interact with people in our families and people in our neighborhood who we change, we make things new, we make things different as a result of the initiative we take. So leadership is about the actions that you take, not the position that you hold. And I'd like to keep that in mind as our weeks unfold, and particularly as you look to write your own individual development items. And that brings me to the second discussion I wanted to share with you this week on this overview. Last week you looked at Chapter 1 of Bennis, and this week you'll be creating a similar summary, but you're going to be covering 3 chapters, Chapters 2, 3, and 4. And what you'll be doing is quite similar to what you did last week. You'll be summarizing each chapter individually, and then for each chapter, I would like you to identify 1 to 2 specific behaviors of how you will apply the concepts from that chapter. You'll use the same 4 columns that you did in week 1 in identifying what actions you'll take, what you'll do to implement those, the coaches and support people, and the measures. So please use the same framework that you see on Blackboard that was in week 1, and then I've reposted on week 2 for you. And you're going to identify actions for all 3 chapters. So I'd like to suggest as the format is that you summarize your learnings from Chapter 2, which should be a minimum of about 400 words, and then write the developmental chart for the ideas from Chapter 2. Then similarly for Chapter 3, to write the narrative learning points for Chapter 3, then create a chart of how you will implement those actions, and then Chapter 4, the narrative, and then the chart of how you will implement the actions. Now for these actions, what you're to do is really focus on the different roles that you have right now, whether again it's at work, you're volunteer, if you're involved in athletic organizations, coaching teams in your communities, volunteer work, or roles that you hold at home. And I'd like you to look at, where do I want to be more effective? What do I want to do differently in order to increase, improve, or enhance my impact? And then in each of the individual chapters, to identify the role, the project, the individuals with whom you're looking to continue to improve your leadership growth. So be as specific as you can. And I want to point out, if you haven't seen it already, I created a tab on Blackboard, and it's called Resources for Building Your Leadership Development Plan on the left side under the reference material. And if you click on that, you're going to see several different attachments that I've created for resources and ideas for what people do in order to build their talents and build their skills within a particular area. Those references and material can help you identify and customize. Please don't just cut and paste information out of that. I'd like you to customize it for your role and show how it's going to help you be more effective. Identify coaches and support people who can help you grow within those areas. These could be colleagues at work, somebody who, say, sits with you in the meeting, and he or she could provide you with feedback after the meeting on how well you presented your ideas about the project that you're working on and that you're leading within your department. They could provide you with feedback on what you did well, and maybe ideas of how you might adjust, change, or maybe follow up and have some one-on-one communications after the meeting in order to clarify the process or the approach, or to just reinforce the importance of why we need to engage in this project. Now, some of you may not be working full-time, but I know you're in other leadership roles that may be in your community, working in your children's schools, coaching, providing other support within your community, or leadership roles that you have at home. Again, all of these strengths, all of these emotional intelligence competencies are related to our effectiveness in all of the roles that we hold on a day-to-day basis and the actions that we take. So again, the second point I wanted to emphasize in this overview is that the Bennis summaries are meant to bring theory to practice. The theories are what Bennis shares with us, and he gives us examples of people that he's interacted with, and in some cases they're world leaders and people that we recognize in various industries. And in other cases, he's just talking about individuals that he's interfaced with and some of the key leadership concepts that we need to all be aware of. So that's the conceptual part of our class, leadership theory to practice. The practice piece is what you put in the chart. It's what developmental actions you identify that will enhance your effectiveness in your work, your communities, and in your home roles that you play in order to apply these concepts and to do things differently. So as I mentioned earlier, I'd like you to look at current work roles and look at ideas you can put into action this week. Actions you can take, approaches you can use. So please don't focus on, say, a future leadership role that you might look to apply to after you've completed your master's program, or a role that you're looking to apply to. Look at things you're doing today and look for ideas and approaches that will help you be more effective tomorrow by implementing these ideas today. So that's about the Bennis summaries. With this week, again, we'll do chapters 2 through 4. We'll have 3 more Bennis papers. They'll all follow the same format, and I've clustered them in 3 chapters per week, and you'll see the assignments listed as each week unfolds. So the third thing I wanted to cover with you is the folders that I'll create each week. You saw one in week 1, and now you'll see one again in week 2, that is titled Scholarly Articles. These are the articles that are for you to read and to then pull out the key points and summarize the key information in those articles around leadership concepts, but also leadership practices. All of the articles that I've posted in these folders, and I'll continue to create these folders each week up through week 9, so that you can use the information to basically create a customized approach to understanding leadership based on the types of theories and approaches that are most relevant to your leadership roles. Leadership, as you might imagine, is a very large field of study. We will not be able to cover all the concepts and theories and practices. So what I've done is culled through what I believe is the most important scholarly literature to provide you with handfuls of articles each week. And my recommendation is that you go through those articles and create summaries. Maybe identify 4 to 5 key learning points for each scholarly article. And then during week 10, that's when your final paper will be due, it's required to have a minimum of 10 scholarly references. So you can use your summaries from any of the weeks, and you must have 10 different articles that you've selected. We will have later in our term a process I've put together where I'll have you go out and identify other scholarly articles that you can add to the mix as well. But each week I will post some through Blackboard for you. And my advice is to develop summaries maybe on 3x5 cards or other note-taking strategies that you use so that it makes it easier for you to write your paper, your final paper that will be due. And if you haven't done so already, I strongly recommend that you look under the reference material guide on Blackboard. You're going to see the first tab that gives you the final leadership paper and development plan, and that will be the paper that you'll be writing for week 10. I like to encourage people to look at this during the first part of the class because, as Stephen Covey had said in many of his writings, start with the end in mind. So I want you to see how the scholarly sources are integrated into the final paper, into the different sections that are required for this leadership paper. So those were the ideas I wanted to talk with you this week. You'll be focused this week on leadership strengths through looking at the VIA, Values in Action, Leadership Inventory, developed by Martin Seligman and Chris Peterson. Secondly, the Bennis summaries. You'll be doing chapters 2 through 4 this week and submitting those. And then the scholarly articles and the importance of keeping up to your readings and noting down key points in order to make it easier for you to write that final paper. Just on a side note, we will be having discussion boards every week, and what I strongly encourage you to do, sometimes I will assign it, other times I won't, but I encourage you to spend time looking at other people's posts on the discussion boards, learning from their reflections in order to help you really, as we would in a classroom environment. This is our group discussion and learning from others' perspectives. And what you might find is for that column 3 each week of your development plans, like last week in week 1, I ask people to identify coaches and mentors, people who can support them in their ongoing leadership development. My hope is that you would find 1 or 2 people in our class, in our network right now, that may be a coach or ultimately long-term a mentor for you to help to continue to support your leadership growth and your ability to build on your strengths and continue to expand your emotional intelligence so that you're optimizing your own impact as a leader in whatever situation and context you find yourself in now, as well as your career continues to unfold. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop me an email, or if you'd like to spend time and talk on the phone or to set up a Skype call, I'm happy to be flexible to your schedule. I know our online class environment allows you to work at your own rate and at your own pace. Just a side note as well, I have posted a few extra videos that I came across that I thought were interesting about the importance of using positive emotions at work and how that's related to use of strengths. Because when we're using our strengths well, we're much more positive in the impact that we're having because we're in our own personal zone of effectiveness. And that's what makes a difference in terms of leadership engagement and leadership effectiveness. So again, have a great week, and I look forward to reading the information that you'll be posting for me. Take care.